Time for some more Ikki Abridged. Previously, we faced a lot of castle battles, some of which were last stands and some of which actually worked. We did make some progress though. We took out a Shimazu field army and continued the advance through Kyushu, but mainly we were settling into a routine of constantly fending off not just enemy clans, but constant Buddhist insurrections instigated by those clans. We just recently lost this bit of territory to the Uragami, and now I need to worry about the fact they could go north here and attack the less defended castles instead of killing themselves at Himeji, which is what I'm really looking for. So, to defend against that, I'm going to split the force that recently took down the Honma and have some of them defend that route and the rest will go back to defending against Hatakeyama. My anti-Mogami reprisal force has now arrived. We can go right for this castle and take it back immediately. The army that did take this castle recently has gone back around to the north side of these mountains, and those two units of random militia that are standing out in the woods were spying on them, so that's how I know that. And basically, that's an easy capture, but we'll need to go on and find that army to really settle the matter. Against the Shimazu, we can easily advance and take the next castle at the southwest tip of the island. I think we're getting pretty close to actually bringing the Shimazu down, but at this stage, many of the units in these two armies need to go back for public order purposes and to stay in these two new castles for that purpose as well. So it's going to be hard to actually put something together to go out and safely take the rest of the Shimazu stuff, and that's going to be the main problem we face. Plus, we've got another problem at the north end of the island. Two stacks under our vassal, the Akazuki, suddenly declare war on us. They kind of moved as if they were going to attack, but they don't this turn, so that's nice of them. But obviously there are many castles around there they could take if they wanted to. The Kitapatake start a rebellion in that place I was trying to defend against the Uragami, so that's not very useful. The Uragami actually go away, so that's good, but then the rebels come in instead, so we do end up defending this castle as I thought, just not against the opponent I was expecting. So this time, it's an anti-rebel battle where we don't have a gigantic castle to help us out, but still we have a reasonable garrison here, so nothing too difficult if the AI screws up enough. We've only got a first level castle, but we do get the big one, and this time that's a good thing because we have enough troops to cover all the different approaches the enemy are using. So we just let them climb up those nice long walls, lose a bunch of men to the climb, and then grind their way through a bunch of our troops at the top, and things like our Town Guard, which we get for free, can annihilate Yari Ashigaru. Town Guard are basically a samurai unit, so that's all good. We've also got some samurai retainers, and the enemy didn't use their archers very effectively as well. They did tend to bring them in and climb them up the wall for no reason, didn't have to do any reeling in or anything like that. Absolutely perfect. And once we start throwing in things like our samurai retainers, those Yari Ashigaru and Yumi Ashigaru will die. I was even able to go out of the gates and attack some other archers that were just wandering around to stop them from shooting at me, meaning overall we've got a pretty steadfast defense here, and we just wait for something good to happen. Looks like our Yari Ashigaru were just about able to beat two units of bows in melee. As I've said before, at the low level, the units of bows and units of spears aren't that different in terms of their melee stats. I guess it's a bit better for Ashigaru than for militia. Anyway, moving on. The enemy do get a lot of stuff into the castle as our first wave of things holding them on the wall gradually dies, but they killed enough stuff that what's left over can't beat what we have left over. Getting a nice cornering there between that tower that will annihilate that entire unit of bows. Very juicy stuff. The battle actually goes on for ages after this because their general dismounted, then walked to the edge of the map and then back to attack us. I thought he was going to withdraw, but no. Eventually he comes back. By that time I put some men outside the castle to kill him, making sure to use the men who are necromanceable, so it doesn't matter if they die, but that fight didn't last very long anyway. Made sure to continue the battle until the general himself was dead, so that when these rebels inevitably have to be fought again, they don't have that general and things will be a bit easier. Here's the result. We did lose some of our regular units, the units I was hoping to help with the defense against the Uragami, so potentially that will come back to haunt us. There was also another nearby battle against rebels. That one was an auto-resolve, and then we move out with our couple of units to finish off this tiny bit of rebel army. I actually lost a whole unit of Yari militia, unfortunately. I thought that was a bit mean. So there you go, there was some consequence to that rebellion in the end, I suppose, other than me wasting time doing it. And right after that, at the start of the next turn, I took out this Ashikaga Shogunate force. That's a force of rebels that they've bribed to join them. So there we go, we forced the Ashikaga Shogunate to waste some money and grabbed some experience on our troops. And yes, these two outposts are really kind of hopeless right now. One day we might conquer to them and save them, but in the meantime they're just going to have to be attacked by whatever. Now then, it's time for us to move up against the Imogami and try to find that army they have somewhere to take it out. And we know that we recently really heavily depleted that army, so I was expecting it to be still somewhat dead. Don't really know how much replenishment the AI gets. But anyway, we can't get to the next castle this turn. So we just move up a bit and set up an ambush, but we don't see any sign of the enemy. With the Shimazu, I wanted to do something, but as I said, it's kind of difficult with public order. But what I realized I could do is attack with just one of the armies, because the other army with our faction leader gets like +5 public order from character presence due to his perks. So by leaving one of the stacks behind and splitting the troops between the two castles, we can keep public order and still have nearly one army advance. I can also advance with a half stack down the eastern road here, and that's enough to make a reasonable siege on that next castle. I just left them to see if they would sally. Also, besieging it cancelled their recruitment, which I could see was going on, so that will help us out, although we do take winter attrition doing sieges right now. Against our newly disloyal vassal, the Akizuki, all I can really do is have a couple of units be in the nearest castles. We've no major force, and we know they have 2 stacks, so just had to wait and see what they did. And what they did was send only one of the stacks, luckily enough, towards the more heavily garrisoned of the 2 castles next to them. However, it is quite a good stack, and our garrison is full of militia units. So not ideal. We're facing a whole ton of katana samurai. Those will cut apart all of our spear militia and stuff. But we also do have a level 2 castle to play with. I'm going to do the usual sacrifice and shoot strategy at the inner part. At first though, my men were just being hit by the enemy's archers, which was a bit annoying. A good thing though is that this map gets the same glitch we saw happen before on it. There's this redoubt area where there's a tower the enemy like to just stand underneath and watch. For some reason they can only attack with 1 unit of the 3 they send there, and that's going to help us out because that takes 2 entire units of the katana samurai out of the fight, a massive portion of the enemy's melee strength. So we're going to be fighting the weaker Yari samurai for the most part, who are more killable in melee. And just seeing what happens. I guess the melees aren't really where we're going to be killing them here. We're just blocking the enemy, and then we'll rain arrows down on everything and see if we kill more enemies than we do allies. I can also pop fire arrows now and again to slightly counteract the enemy's armor. We're not going to have that long, that's the problem. The enemy will kill my militia very fast, so I'm having to throw a lot of stuff in there to try and keep the fights going so the archers can do their stuff. Here was another nice development. Another unit of katana samurai is just wandering about in the corner under a tower. So that's 3 units of deadly katana samurai that aren't annihilating me right now, and this is helping out a lot because we should be dead by now basically in these melees. Katana samurai should just cut through our militia, but with their numbers very much diminished by mistakes, things are going okay. Plus there is one thing to consider, and that is I've got loads of techs that increase melee defense. And I remember checking recently, I think a Yari militia unit has something like 17 defense, or maybe it was 12. They have extreme defense comparable to samurai in good circumstances. I think these ones were leveled up, the ones I'm thinking of. But actually they're not that bad in terms of not dying. They're not going to get any kills. They have 2 attack even when they're leveled up. But good stuff, good as a sacrifice, and it's working well in this battle actually. We're starting to see enemy morale drop. Plus our archers can actually kill enemies. They're not like the veteran samurai. Regular samurai aren't quite arrow proof. Here those guys who were wandering about near the tower finally committed, but I just put my retainers in front of them and that will be a relatively even fight. Our retainers have fewer numbers, but they also can't rout, so we'll come out on top. We got pretty much the ultimate sacrificial setup here. We've got 1 unit of Yari militia holding on against like 4 or 5 enemy units, and they've turned their flank, so we have great line of sight on this nice enemy blob, and we can just pluck away at them with the bows. They do get armor save, so it's a bit less effective than it looks, but still that's going to take out a whole bunch of samurai which we don't really have another way of dealing with, so this is the only way we can get through this. A couple of enemy units are starting to climb into the central section now. But we have stuff in there, enough to take them out, especially where it's archers. For some reason they were going real heavy on the assault with Yumi Ashigaru, so that's fine by me. Eventually my sacrificial spears die, but we've taken out a whole bunch of these samurai units. Now the reckoning, those samurai are going to go for the capture point, and the few things we have left, try to stop them. We get another good sacrificial setup here where a couple units of samurai are fighting some of our naginatas, and our archers shoot down using fire arrows to take out the samurai. The fire arrows have armor piercing capabilities for some reason. I guess they just mean good arrows basically when they added the fire arrows ability. And that works out, we do take out those samurai. Another group of samurai was killed in front of my Yumi retainers here. And really, things are starting to look pretty okay for this battle. They're sending in their general, and it's going to come down to a final battle in the interior. I sent out some town guard to finish off some archers who were out there to stop them sniping away at us. And then it's going to be down to these Katana Ashigaru and some remnants of my Katana retainers to take out this block of samurai moving onto the capture point. The enemy are really heavily depleted from their earlier fights, and they're really tired, but they're using both Banzai and Sprint to counteract those things. Banzai stops them from routing, Sprint removes their fatigue. So they're going to be doing okay at first, but they'll get dramatically worse once those things wear off. And we can't rout, so they have to kill all of us to get through there. Their general's going to annihilate some of my archers. One of their other generals, though, just threw himself away. He just walked about in front of some towers and lost his whole unit eventually. This map's pulling off some great glitches for us so far. A bit later, back in this main fight, it's just kind of happening now. The enemy are getting tired, their numbers are depleting, and while they're going to be killing my Katana Ashigaru easily, we don't have to kill that many of them to win the battle because they can rout. Looks like their general outside has already routed. And boom, there it is. We chain rout this block of units and then immediately kill them all because they're all stuck and surrounded. So with that, this battle is going to be suddenly won. We have gotten away with this. Just had to kill their general somewhere and he routs due to my towers shooting at him. And here is the result. We did take significant losses, losing a real unit as well as a bunch of fake garrison units. But there we go, we've held on against the Akazuki. Their other army though starts moving towards us right away, so we'll see what comes of that. A Kitabatake monk dies there, probably trying to start a new rebellion, so that's perfect. And the Uragami come to attack Himeji Castle, so again, that's what I wanted to happen. The army they brought isn't very good, and we have tons of stuff inside. We could win this if it was a field battle, but with the castle defences included as well, this should be a pretty easy finish. This is the castle where it has that northern wall weakness. There's a very short path to the capture point if you can get past the two climbs. Luckily they didn't focus on that. Most of their guys are taking the long way in past loads of towers and the maze-like castle structure. They did have 3 units of archers attacking from the north, but 2 of them went in for a melee attack, which isn't going to work very well, and the climb and towers will take out most of them. The other units will start walking towards my little sacrifice and shoot set up near the middle, and they just don't have enough stuff to get past that. I can send out my Katana Retainer Cav to go and slam the 1 unit of archers that stayed outside the castle. That's the end of them, and the ones that are going inside obviously won't do very well. It does mean though that my cav will get hit by the tower, which was annoying. We lost a few guys to that, although they're only garrison cav, so that doesn't matter. Their attack on my main position appears to be starting, although a couple of units have wandered off into the corner there. That's good for us. So yes, it's like 1 or 2 units attacking at a time, and in many cases they're struggling with the towers, like right here. The amount of casualties they take on the way in is large enough to render them on the verge of routing by the time they get to us. So that's all good. Those units that wandered off ended up going after my cavalry, so that's perfect. We can just lead them off into the corner to get shot by some towers and our archers and stuff. And the guys that did make the attack, well, they are just screwed. We've got some bow warrior monks here who can snipe away and probably not even get friendly fire shooting into the melee because they actually hit targets. Eventually everything dies, their general comes in and dies as well, and we call that a day. Our losses were irrelevantly small, and the enemy's losses were great, so that's more like it. That's what I want to see from the Uragami. At the start of the next turn, well, it happens again. Amid all the news here, we've got another insurrection at Osaka Castle, so that's gonna happen again. And the rage uninstall grows ever closer as the Shogunate has no mercy, forcing me to fight that same battle over and over again. We find that Mogami army at the next castle. and, well, we don't really have the best force to attack them with here. While their army's not very good, it's much bigger than ours, and we're packed out with Long Yari Ashigaru, a build that's super focused on field battles. So because of that, we're not going to go in for the assault. I'm going to hope I can get a sally going, and I'm using these reinforcements in a hidden position to make that go better, making sure they're hidden to increase the chance the enemy do actually sally. We can go out and finish off some survivors from the Akizuki with our good old ghost troops here. So that's an officer and a few troops swept aside. Annoyingly, killing these guys takes me slightly off-road because they're in the trees, and that meant I didn't have enough movement points to get to the castle from the castle off to the left, to Akizuki Castle in fact. It does appear to have their name on it, but we're keeping it. So yes, we end up standing just outside, and that's going to be pretty annoying in a second. With my Shimazu siege that I set up, I've now reinforced the besieging stack, and now I thought, well, let's just try and take it. This is a situation where doing it manually would probably be better, but they do have a lot of archers, so I wasn't quite sure of that. And I'm also, stressed out from having done so many battles in quick succession recently, that I was fine just auto-resolving that and losing half of my men. I did make a vassal here at last, because we still need to go back for public order reasons, and now that Realm Divide is done, our vassals will be more loyal, so these new guys shouldn't immediately backstab us. Well, we'll see, I guess. The Ito there might even help me out if they decide to go against the Shimazu. I also want to make an attack down south, and the thing I set up for last turn goes ahead. This next castle over here is only lightly defended. I didn't go into attack at first because I was wondering if I could get more troops from the other army to help, but they're both too far away and I need to keep the commander over there for public order, as I said. So we don't do that, but the auto-resolve on that castle is fine, so in we go. Now the Shimazu are starting to look pretty thin on the ground. They only have 3 castles left. We just don't have enough men and public order space to finish them off. Now the Akizuki do attack with their other army, which turns out to be worse than the first one, so that's good. But my guys being stuck outside the castle sucks there because they retreat to avoid a field battle, meaning we end up with another siege, but I don't have that half stack of extra troops inside, which would make this nice and easy. Still, we're facing an army that's a split between pure trash and cav, which is really bad at making sieges, because the pure trash will rout, and the cav will wait until the rout's already happened before they attack. So actually this army is particularly weak in this situation. And we still have the exploit map, and again 2 units are out of the fight immediately to stand there and die. Got some Neginators and some gunners. A few of them appear to have actually made it inside the castle this time. They get killed by the tower shooting in the other direction. So it seems there is a way for troops stuck out here to get in sometimes. They just don't usually do it and just wait for their fate. As for the rest of the fight, well, it's going to be an easier version of the fight we just saw, really. Doing the exact same plan, only this time instead of facing Katana and Yari Samurai, we're facing Yumi and Yari Militia, which will die way easier. Doing the same thing here, trying to turn the flank of a sacrificial unit to get good line of sight for the archers, and once we have it, we'll just absolutely pour it on these militia. As mentioned, we don't need to kill too many of them to rout them, so just wait and see, and we're pretty much guaranteed to get some good results of that. I've also got my Yumi retainers shooting at another similar fight happening over near the gate, and even the actual melees, where it's our Yari militia against theirs, should be okay, especially because of this tech thing I mentioned. These small factions probably don't have the unit upgrade tech, so our guys, even if they're the same unit, should have higher stats. A while later, lots of stuff is dead and this appears to be working. The bounce bar's still really bad because they have all that heavy cav waiting in the wings, but they haven't made a particular dent on our defences. Here my men chasing this routing unit get attacked from behind by some enemy archers charging into melee, but that's fine because those archers are already damaged and they don't last very long in the melee. We're out of arrows so we can't shoot them, but our Yari militia beat them instantly. They rout and now they have to rout through us to get to the gate, meaning they'll take huge losses. I don't think we actually killed enough to stop them coming back from routing, but we killed them to the point where they'll just rout instantly if they fight us again. So that's all good, the perfect preparations for the next wave, and that wave is now starting. You can see here some cav have run over to attack the redoubt area, but they don't really do anything. They go and join the queue to die without climbing up, so it can be more than 2 units waiting in the death queue. We've got it up to 3 units, and those Katana cav would have been okay in melee, so keeping them out of the fight is really useful. We've trapped these archers up against this wall. They're going to be absolutely slaughtered, clearing the ground for the rest of the katana cav and some light cav as well to come and attack these men. We're out of arrows, so we can't do the sacrificial strategy so well, but can the enemy's small cav units actually overcome what we have left in the garrison? Probably not. We stop this general using our town guard and some sacrificial archers, and we stop this blob of dismounted cav using our katana retainers. We're actually a little bit outmatched here when everything's all put together, but again, we can't rout and they can, giving us an advantage. And all of their first wave stuff did come back from routing, but they're now on the verge of routing even as this fight starts. Jumping in against those katana ashigaru, they cannot win. Back to the fight with their general. He gets hit by an arrow from one of our towers by the looks of things. That's lucky stuff because that's going to morale shock everything, and immediately we're seeing some wavering on that enemy cav, and we see all of the levied infantry climbing up the wall actually just rout before most of them had even climbed. So that's great. Their shattering will inflict the army losses morale penalty on what's left, and dismounted cav don't really have the best morale anyway, so they rout without us gradually being killed by them, which I think would have been the eventual result. And now we'll slaughter them a bit, grab that heroic victory, and once again we have held this castle against Akizuki. Most of our losses were in the garrison, so we basically didn't lose them. That's all good stuff. Then some bad stuff happens. Yes, we're back here for another rebel fight at Osaka Castle. Was pretty annoyed about this, so I played most of it just on like fast speed and hoped my men didn't die too much, since half the stack we have here are all garrison troops. Doesn't really matter if they die too much. And things went pretty similar to how they've been before. I did have my sacrificial katanas in a slightly different position to try and avoid being shot by the towers on the outer ring once they were captured, and that worked pretty well. As usual, lots of enemy units were fixated on trying to capture towers, but due to glitches or something they just don't do it. So that actually takes like 5 or 6 units out of the fight. It's much more exploitative than on that other map, and the towers are better, so it kills the enemy much faster. Good stuff. And here the enemy are throwing their archers into melee assault. I don't know why the AI has been doing that so much recently. It's usually better than that, but I shouldn't complain because it helps me out quite a lot how willing they are to sacrifice all of these archer ashigari into melee. And that's that really. The enemy army ends up dying, mostly to the towers actually in the distance, with me not really doing anything. And we've defended Osaka Castle yet again. There is some hope that this might stop happening if their monk eventually dies, because lower level monks are less likely to be able to do this. Not really sure what the chances of that happening are, but it happened to the Kitaputeke monk earlier, so it's possible. What I worry though is that all the other factions are gradually sending their own 5 or 6 monks, whatever the cap is, towards us. And one day we might just be swarmed by an unlimited supply of enemy monks, and this will just get out of control. But if that doesn't happen, then we'll be fine. One thing that hasn't happened is we haven't been overwhelmed by naval invasions from all over, which is what I kind of thought would happen. Even the Hatakeyama, who border us, haven't bothered attacking yet, so to some extent the game's being generous, so I like to think maybe they're not going to spam me with ninja and monks or something as well. Why don't you join me next time to find out, and find out if I can find a way to try and defeat the Shimazu without getting regular rebellions going as well.